Missing black boy walks out of jungle after weeks, but he wasn't alone. It was supposed to be a quiet Saturday hike. The Thomas family, Monica, David, and their 8-year-old son Elijah, had planned the day for weeks. They packed trail snacks, water, and a camera. Elijah wore his favorite red hoodie, too big for him, but soft and familiar. The Willow Ridge Jungle Reserve was a favorite spot for families, though it was known for its thick brush and confusing paths. Still, the trails were marked. People hiked them every day. By midday, they reached a shady spot near a small stream. Monica handed David a sandwich and turned to give Elijah a juice box. But he was gone. Not 5 feet away just moments ago. Now nowhere. At first they laughed, thinking he was playing a game, maybe crouched behind a tree or rock. Monica called out. David searched the stream bed. Minutes passed. No answer. The laughter faded. Within the hour, they were running, shouting his name. The forest echoed their panic. Elijah didn't answer. The trees closed in, dense and whispering. Cell phones had no signal. David scrambled up a ridge, eyes scanning. Monica kept circling back, calling again and again, voice hoarse. By evening, the sun dropped low. A ranger team responded to their emergency call from a trail checkpoint. Flashlights cut through the darkness. Dogs were brought in. Volunteers combed the paths. But nothing. No footprints. No clothing. No sound. It was as if Elijah had vanished into the earth. Each day after blurred into the next. Drones flew overhead. Search maps grew wider. The forest gave no clues. Monica stayed at the ranger camp. She refused to sleep. David paced like a trapped animal. They searched until their voices cracked. Rain came and went. Still nothing. Online, the news spread. A missing boy in a jungle should have drawn national attention, but the story stayed small. Some asked why. Monica didn't bother with theories. Her son was out there. That's all that mattered. On day 10, the official search was scaled back. Too much ground, too little sign. Quietly, the teams began to leave. The jungle stood still again. But Monica stayed. Her eyes never left the trees. Elijah didn't mean to wander far. He had spotted a bird, bright yellow, fluttering just ahead, and followed it off the trail, just for a second. Then it was gone. When he turned around, the trail was gone too. The trees all looked the same. Thick trunks, hanging vines. No path. No people. He called for his mom, then his dad. No answer. Only the sound of wind in the leaves and something distant. Running water, maybe. The first night was cold. The noises were loud and unfamiliar. Chirps, howls, snapping branches. He curled up under a bush, hugging his knees, trying not to cry. He missed his bed. He missed his mom's voice. Everything was too big out here. Too dark. The next morning he tried to find his way back. He walked toward the sun. Then the sun moved. He was going in circles. Hunger set in. His stomach hurt. He found berries. Some tasted sweet, others made his lips sting. He spit them out. A lizard darted past his foot. He sat on a rock and tried not to panic. On the third night, something rustled nearby. Elijah froze. A shape stepped from the trees, low to the ground. 4 legs. A dog. Thin, with patches of missing fur and one ear torn. They stared at each other. The dog didn't growl. It didn't come closer either. It just lay down, watching him. In the morning, the dog was still there. When Elijah stood up, the dog stood too. It walked ahead, paused, looked back. He followed. That day, they found a small stream. Elijah drank until he couldn't anymore. The dog lay beside him as he rested in the grass. He named it Shadow. Every day after, Shadow led. Elijah followed. They stayed near water. The dog sniffed and scratched and sometimes found roots or bugs Elijah could eat. It barked once when a snake came too close. Elijah learned how to use a stick to tap the ground ahead. He watched where the dog stepped and copied him. The jungle was still scary, but Shadow never left. Elijah wasn't alone anymore. And slowly, the fear turned into something else. Something like hope. Monica stayed near the ranger post, refusing to leave the jungle's edge. Every morning, she stood at the trailhead, eyes fixed on the trees. David begged her to rest, but she wouldn't. She barely ate. She barely spoke. 10 days had passed, then 12, then 15. People stopped asking questions. Some stopped showing up. The official search ended quietly. The dogs were loaded back into trucks. Drones returned to base. One ranger folded up the last printed map and packed it away. The forest had won, they said. Monica didn't answer. She kept sitting near the fire at night, staring into the darkness, listening for footsteps that never came. Media interest faded too. There were other headlines, bigger stories. Online, a few people kept asking why the case wasn't on every screen in America. But it was drowned out by silence. Another missing child, but not one the world seemed to hold on to. Luis Delgado, a seasoned volunteer tracker, stayed behind. Something about the case unsettled him. He had walked those trails for years. He remembered finding paw prints by the river, a dog maybe. But beside them, something else. Small. Human. They'd been dismissed as old. Probably hikers, someone had said. Luis wasn't so sure anymore. Locals began talking too. Whispers spread through the village. An older woman in a red shawl said she had seen something. A dark dog, walking alone, following the river. A boy-shaped shadow behind it. Some called it a spirit. A jungle protector. Most rolled their eyes. Monica didn't. She asked where. The woman pointed upriver. Luis followed that trail the next day. He found scratch marks on a tree, just above a child's reach. Nearby, a pile of small bones. Squirrel, maybe. A place where something had rested. It wasn't enough to act on, but it didn't feel random. 3 weeks to the day Elijah vanished, a call came from a man driving along the edge of the reserve. A boy had stepped onto the road, barefoot and filthy, holding onto a skinny dog like it was keeping him upright. His lips were cracked. His face was thin. But he was alive. And he wasn't alone. Monica ran before the car even stopped. Her shoes sank into the mud, but she didn't care. Elijah stood there on shaky legs, arms limp at his sides, with dirt caked to his skin and leaves stuck in his hair. The dog stood in front of him, almost protective, like it wouldn't let anyone near until it was sure. She dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around him, sobbing into his shoulder. Elijah didn't cry. He just rested his head on hers and closed his eyes. Shadow stood close, his tail still, his eyes locked on the crowd beginning to gather. At the ranger post, doctors swarmed them. They examined every inch of Elijah, his weight, his blood pressure, his wounds. He was dehydrated, scratched up, bruised, but somehow alert. He answered questions quietly. He described the stream, the trees, the places he hid when it rained. And always, the same name came up. Shadow. The doctors looked at the dog, confused. He had no collar, no tags. Ribs were visible through his thin coat. But he didn't back away, didn't growl, didn't seem afraid of anyone. He stayed by Elijah's side like it was the only place he belonged. Word spread fast. The lost boy found after 3 weeks alone in the jungle. It sounded impossible. News vans arrived. Microphones were held out. But Monica stepped in front of them. Her son wasn't going to be a spectacle. Not now. Elijah didn't want toys or cameras. He wanted food. He wanted to sleep with the lights on. And he wanted Shadow with him. When they tried to keep the dog outside the clinic, Elijah refused to sleep until they let him curl up beside his bed. Everyone kept asking the same question. How did an 8-year-old survive 3 weeks in a jungle full of predators, storms, and poisonous plants? Elijah just said one thing. Shadow helped me. Even the rangers were puzzled. They had no record of a dog matching Shadow's description in the area. No one claimed him. No one recognized him. But Elijah didn't care where Shadow came from. To him, the dog had come from the trees, from the darkness, from the wild, and he had come to save him. The ranger unit kept a photo of Shadow on their office wall, not as a trophy, but as a mystery. A few weeks after Elijah's return, a young ranger named Theo noticed something strange. He was flipping through old reports when he paused on a weather-damaged file. Missing animals, listed after a military rescue gone wrong during a flood 2 years earlier. One entry caught his eye: a dog, Belgian Malinois, trained in search and rescue, last seen near the southern ridge of the same jungle. Scar on left shoulder, right ear torn. The photo, though grainy, was unmistakable. It was Shadow. The file gave him a name: Ranger. He had vanished during an evacuation, swept away after leading civilians through a flash flood zone. His handler had searched for days, never found him. The unit had assumed he drowned, but he hadn't. He had survived, alone. Theo shared the find with the others. A few Rangers shook their heads in disbelief. One looked like he might cry. They contacted the original unit. Photos were exchanged. It was confirmed. Shadow was a soldier. No wonder he had found Elijah. He had been trained for it. The truth spread slowly, but carefully. Monica was told first. She sat quietly, hand over her mouth, tears welling as she looked down at the dog now sleeping beside her son. She whispered, "Thank you." Elijah didn't understand the full story at first, but he didn't need to. In his eyes, Shadow wasn't just a hero. He was family. The military offered to take him back. But when they saw the way the boy clung to the dog's fur, the way the dog looked only at the child when anyone entered the room, they stepped back. Shadow stayed. In time, his coat grew shiny again. He gained weight. He chased birds in the backyard and slept curled at Elijah's feet, always alert, always watching. At night, Monica sometimes caught Elijah whispering to him, telling stories, making up little songs. She never interrupted. Somewhere deep in the forest, the trees still stood, quiet and unknowing. But one boy had walked out of that green silence, and a lost dog had come home with him.